Good morning. Welcome to Talkline on the MetroNews Radio Network.
Do not attempt to change the station. You are surrounded.
We interrupt this program to bring you an emergency news bulletin. Repeat, this is an emergency bulletin. Keep your radio turned on.
Holy smoke.
From the studios of the West Virginia Radio Corporation and the MetroNews Radio Network, the voice of West Virginia, comes the most powerful radio show in West Virginia. This is MetroNews Talkline with Hoppy Kercheval.
Check satellite uplink. Activated Telos telephone. Switch network control from Charleston to Morgantown.
Stand by. Cue Hoppy. You're on.
Good morning. Welcome to Talkline on MetroNews in and around the great state of West Virginia. Hoppy Kercheval with you. Joe Nelson is our producer. Deborah Martinelli handling the video stream. You can watch us at wvmetronews.com. The phone number is 1-800-765-8255. You can email me, talkline at wvmetronews.com. Text me at 304-TALK-304. Tweet me at Hoppy Kercheval. Coming up later this hour, starting next year, one of the great things about the West Virginia State Capitol, I thought, has always been that anybody can get in pretty much. It's a very free range. You can come and go as you please. It's always been very open. That's changing. So starting early next year, it will not be as easy to get into the West Virginia State Capitol for the public. And we're going to talk about that here this morning. Also coming up, Daniel Hall announced yesterday that he is leaving the West Virginia State Senate, taking a job as a lobbyist for the National Rifle Association. Now, Hall was significant in the Senate for a couple of reasons. One is that after the last election, Hall was elected as a Democrat, but after the election, he flipped to the Republican Party, giving the GOP an 18-16 advantage in the Senate. Now, there has been a question that has been raised as to if Hall in fact is going to resign. Would his replacement be a Democrat or a Republican? We'll explore that story here this morning. Also coming up, Alan Taylor live from Phoenix, Arizona. Bowl preparations underway for the Mountaineers. Bowl preparations without several Mountaineers, including Daryl Worley, did not make the grade or didn't get his work in on time. Alan Taylor has that story. But first up this morning here on MetroNews Talkline, Saturday marks the 10-year anniversary of the Sago mine disaster in Upshur County. There was an explosion there at the mine, a methane explosion. It trapped 13 miners inside for a period of time, and when rescuers finally reached those trapped inside the mine, 12 had died, 1 had survived. The miners who did not survive are Tom Anderson, Jerry Groves, James Bennett, Junior Hamner, Terry Helms, Marty Bennett, Jesse Jones, Fred Ware Jr., David Lewis, Jackie Weaver, Marshall Winans, and Martin Toller Jr. all lost their lives as a result of that disaster. 1 miner survived, Randall McCoy Jr. He was found with that main group. He survived despite the deadly levels of methane gas. He did suffer some physiological damage as a result of that, and he's still alive and well and living in Upshur County. We want to learn more about how he is doing. Allie Goodwin-Gregg is a family friend, and she has been a spokesperson for the family for those past 10 years. She visited with the family yesterday, and she joins us on MetroNews Talkline. Allie, good morning. Good to see you. Merry Christmas.
Morning.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for coming on. So how are the McCoys doing?
They're great. They're great. They actually are in Taylor County.
Taylor County?
They live
Okay,
in
I'm sorry.
Taylor County in the metropolis of Simpson.
Okay, all right. Had they always lived in Taylor County?
Yes,
okay.
yes. They live, and actually they live, her mother and dad live over the hill, her sister, her brother, all her family lives right in the same area.
Okay,
So they all live there. But they're doing very well.
You were with them just yesterday, is that correct?
I was. I went down to see them, and it occurred to me, life gets in the way sometimes, but I had not seen them in about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Anna and I keep in touch via Facebook and cell phone and all that good stuff, but they're doing very well. We had a great visit and just sat and reminisced about what we went through 10 years ago when he was in the hospital, and then later Health South, and then going home.
Mm-hmm. Get a little bit closer to that mic, if you
Sure,
would, please, Allie. Now, and they have 6 children.
They do. They do.
They've had 2 since.
They've had
Sago.
2. Isaac was born in 2007, and Shelby was born in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also have 2 children from one of Randy's brothers that they're raising.
Oh, okay. So 6 children, and we're going to post a picture on MetroNews at wvmetronews.com. So were the kids around yesterday?
They
Was it just
were.
like crazy, chaotic?
It was, and it's funny because, when everything happened and Sago happened, Randall, their their son, their oldest son, was a 4-year-old, and he was just a wee wisp, little tiny baby. And their daughter Isabel was 18 months, 2 years, and now they're 14 and 11, and they're just beautiful, tall kids. Randall's playing basketball in a youth league down there, and Isabel's part of the dance team at her middle school, and they're just kids.
Yeah. Allie Goodwin Gregg is with us. She's a spokesperson for the Randall and Anna McCoy family and has also become a family friend over the years. I'm always not comfortable how far I should go on this, but clearly he suffered brain damage from the accident, from the lack of oxygen.
Yes.
He had very extensive treatments at WVU and elsewhere. And what can you tell us about his condition? How is he physically?
Physically, he looks like someone that you would see. He moves a little slower, but he's so strong and walks around. He stood the entire time I was there yesterday, just visiting and monitoring the room. Randy is naturally very shy. Okay. And is very, very quiet and kind of pensive in the way he speaks, and that hasn't changed. But if you did not know his story, if you met him on the street, you would never believe where he was 10 years ago.
And his cognitive skills?
His cognitive skills are good. I mean, he has a tremendous memory and recall. He has a great sensitivity. Part of the reason we were talking is because it is the 10th anniversary and there's a significant media interest in talking to him, and he's very, very sensitive, as is Anna, of the other families, because as much as it is an anniversary of what he survived and the miracle that he represented, there were 12 men who did not come out. And there are families and loved ones and children and spouses and brothers who lost their loved one. And
Right.
he's very, very sensitive to that and very much, it weighs on him heavily. And it's something that he thinks about.
And those were his friends in the mine.
They were.
They were.
And
is he able to work?
He's not.
Okay.
He is not able to work, but I think being a full-time dad with 6 kids is probably a good gig.
Okay. He issued a statement this morning, which you're going to read to us on the 10th anniversary of the Sago mine disaster, and the anniversary is Saturday. Would you read that statement?
Sure. The date of January 2nd is difficult for me and my family every year. My wife, Anna, and I think of the families and loved ones of my coworkers and friends who were the victims of the Sago mine disaster, and we pray for God's grace to find them and comfort them as they remember. After all these years, I do not understand why I was spared, but I praise God every day, for He is amazing. I truly believe it was the power of love from my wife and our family, as much as it was the power of prayer by so many people throughout West Virginia, across the country, and around the world. Your kindness and generosity in your prayers has always meant so much to me and will be with me for the rest of my life. Today, Anna and I have 6 beautiful children, and we are grateful for our life together. I could never begin to explain how grateful I am to be here to experience the joy of this family. While the miracle of my unexplained survival was 10 years ago, I will never, ever forget the men with whom I worked who did not survive. And I carry them with me in my heart every day.
That's the statement of Randall McCoy coming up on the 10th anniversary of the Sago mine disaster, the lone survivor of that. Allie Goodwin Gregg is a spokesperson for the family and a family friend. Does that, and there are a number of references in here, I don't want to read too much into this, but I think it's natural that anyone who survived while others did not would always question that why they survived. Have you talked with the family about that, about Randall or Anna about that?
We have, and it's funny because, I think Randy questions it and wonders, as I think that you would,
sure. Being
the person who survived and what he remembers from the time after the explosion to when he became cognizant of the world again. It's interesting because Anna, if you remember and go back, she never had a doubt that he would make it. She never had a doubt. There was an interview on one of the morning shows where she stood and she said, he'll come out. And he was, when he came out of the mine and then he came back to WVU hospitals, I can remember they called the family back to tell them the state of his health. And she said, I need you to come with me. I said, oh, I felt like a voyeur. That wasn't my role, was just to protect them. I didn't need to know the ins and outs. And she insisted that I come with them. And Dr. Julian Bales was at West Virginia University Hospitals at the time. And the diagnosis was grim. I mean, they showed CAT scans and they said, this is how a brain should look. You see that the carbon monoxide poisoning has eaten away at the white matter. I don't know that he'll ever be the same. And Anna looked at everybody around the table and said, he's in there. He's in there. Randy's coming back to me. And she never wavered. I mean, people are strong when there are people around, but I was with them the entire time that they were in Morgantown, and she never wavered. She knew he would come back. She knew he would survive, and they were there together. And it was Anna who noticed things and pushed the doctors to push him. I saw that he did this, and the doctors were like, well, that's a good sign. Biting the lip.
Mm-hmm.
Your lip is chapped. Biting the lip, or feeling an irritation, having a reaction to something that is a conscious move. I'm going to fix this. I have an itch. If something's tickling me, I'm going to push it away. But she would see those things, and she also saw great hope in every milestone that he had, which I think also helped. I mean, their story is very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. Allie Goodwin-Gregg is with us, and she is a spokesperson for the Randy and Anna McCoy family, and also has become a good friend of the family over the years. Does he still have any therapy he has to go through, or does?
He does not. I think he's very active at their home.
Is he?
He and I were talking yesterday about bow hunting. He always loved bow hunting, and I think he told me yesterday he's, I think, maybe 10 pounds lighter than what he used to shoot with the tension in the bow. I pretended like I knew. I wasn't really sure. But he was, because I asked him, do you still do it? Because that was one of the things that concerned him. He had damage in the shoulder and the arm as a result of where he had laid in the mine, and they weren't sure the arm would ever recover, and it has. And he has the strength now to hold the bow and to pull it.
One of the things he had going for him, if I recall, was his youth. He was a young, strong, healthy guy at the time, which certainly contributed to his survival.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The 10th anniversary is Saturday, and again, I feel voyeuristic too, but is he bitter at all?
Not at all. I think it's their faith. I think that truly they are very protective of the other families, and they're very protective of what they have survived and what they've done, but they have a tremendous faith. They have a strong church network, and that has I think gotten them this far. They take trips with their church group. They're very active in their church. They have strong church friends, and I think that's been what carried them through. And you see when people have these issues or face adversity like this, that faith is often what brings them out the other side.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, maybe this gets back to the statement and you and I talked about the possibility of Randy and Anna coming on the program.
We did.
And the invitation was extended, and they felt like they didn't want to, and I didn't push because I didn't feel it was appropriate to do that, although we were always trying to get the story, but I didn't want to push. So is there anything that you think that the McCoys want, because we think of them, we go about our daily lives, but on the anniversaries we do think of them. We think of the victims. In Sago. Is there anything that you think the McCoys want West Virginians to know?
I truly think, and I think that, again, Anna would say this too, and Randy would agree, but who he is and where he is in his life, and the fact that he is walking and talking and, greeting me and hugging me as I walk in the door, and, reprimanding their children for letting the dogs scratch the door and just being a dad. I think Anna has said so many people prayed for him. So many people reached out. They got letters from all over the world that she would love for people to see who he is and how well he's doing and this beautiful life they've made together. But at the same time, they're very protective. People don't really approach them. They have 6 children that they're raising who are high school, middle school, and elementary school, and they're their priority now.
Understood. Well, maybe one of these days they'll come on. We'll have West Virginians become reacquainted with them.
Absolutely.
Allie Goodwin-Gregg, good to see you. Good to see you, and Happy New Year. Thank you very much. All right, we appreciate it. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Look around your holiday table this year and think, how many faces are missing because they've had to leave home to find good jobs in more technology-driven, economically diverse states? The High Technology Foundation is working to keep young, educated West Virginians here at home by attracting high-tech companies to our state. The High Technology Foundation is helping build stronger West Virginia families by building a stronger West Virginia, because there's no place like home and family for the holidays. Learn more at wvhtf.org.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi, and I've got a great West Virginia story I'd like you to watch. Doddridge County's Clara Santucci is in the final stages of training in her bid to earn a spot on the United States Olympic team in the marathon. Her story embodies West Virginia's culture of hard work, dedication, and grit. In association with the Prim law firm, Pikewood Creative has produced a documentary on Clara's Olympic dream. Watch the video by going to primlaw.com. That's PRIM law.com.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest, because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Talkline on Metro News, welcome back. Smokies on the Gorge is hosting their annual New Year's Eve dinner and party. Celebrate the new year with live music by the Mike Snodgrass Band and the famous Smokies on the Gorge Buffet. Don't miss out on this lively night on the edge of the gorge. Call 800-225-5982 or visit go2wv.com for more ideas on how to ring in the new year. But one place to do it is Smokies on the Gorge this New Year's Eve with their New Year's Eve dinner and party. So, what do we do with this affluenza teen? And his mom, Lise Wheel, Fox News legal analyst. Lise, good morning. How are you? Happy New Year.
Good morning and Happy New Year. You know what I want to do, this affluenza kid?
What?
I can't say it on radio.
I know what you want to do. You want to bend him over a table and spank him and smack him.
There you go. Okay, you said I didn't have to say it. I mean, this is just ridiculous. This kid, and let's go back to the facts of this case. There was a woman that pulled over on some road. I don't know if it was a highway. I don't know. I haven't dated that. I don't remember that. But anyway, she pulled over. Good Samaritans came to help. I mean, it's the thing that we all hope for. And if you've ever been you've never been a woman driving a car, but if you have been, like I have, and something happens, it's what we all hope for. It's like so sweet. And here comes this kid burling down the street, drunk as a skunk, and kills them all. And for that, they hire a fancy defense attorney. I'm nothing against a defense attorney. This is what they are paid major bucks to do. And they came up with this affluenza excuse. I blame the judge.
How does that fly? I don't know. How does the judge, and I'm revisiting the case, how does the judge let that fly?
I have no idea. I mean, well, first of all, the judge can't really say anything because the defense attorney can argue anything. But how does a jury buy that? And how does a judge? Well, there's something called JNOV, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, where a judge can actually they can't really overturn because he was found guilty. But they can't overturn that, but they can kind of overturn the sentence. They can come up with the sentence themselves, and they didn't do that.
Well, let's go to now. Elise Wheelsworth, Fox's legal analyst. So Ethan Couch. So what happens now for him?
Okay, first of all, Mexico will extradite him and the mom like a lickety-split, like a snap in the snap. I mean, quickly, because we have good treaties with Mexico. The only time we get in trouble with Mexico on our treaties, on our extradition treaties, is when we want death penalty for the person they're they don't like that.
So he's coming back, and what happens once he gets back here?
Okay. Drum roll, please. Let's say the worst case scenario for him, he gets tried as an adult. They move him out of juvenile court. Because if juvenile court, he's out by April when he turns 19. Okay, so worst case, tried as an adult. Drum roll, 121 days.
That's it, huh?
That's it, 4 months. Now, if he violates probation again, then he's looking at 10 years. But right now, for this first offense, it's only 4 months.
Because technically all he did was violate probation. Now, what about the mother? Will she face any charges or legal ramifications?
I hope so. I mean, she's looking at a misdemeanor, which of course only carries up to a year. Then she's looking at kind of a wobbly, in my estimation, felony. It's kind of like a not a great hard felony, if you know what I mean. It's sort of wobbly. So she could probably get a year, maybe 2 on that. My guess is all told she'll get a year. So she'll serve more time than the son does, at least right now. But the pattern of this, that the kid screws up so horribly and kills all these people, and the parents just pretend it's because, he's rich, and then he gets in trouble again, and the mother helps him out, quote unquote, helps him out again. And it takes them to Mexico. And how are they caught? Because they're ordering pizza. Follow the money, even if it's a Domino's. Follow the money.
It is. It's outrageous.
It's outrageous.
Sometimes I think we look at these and go, well, what about the mom? And understandably we would. But just because the person looks like an adult doesn't mean they're acting like an adult. And to me, this is a child raising a child. This woman's never grown up.
Absolutely. And I don't know where the father is or what's going on there, but it's just the fact that money, that the kid was taught that money, takes care of all. First of all, maybe he was taught that, and that's horrible, and that's bad parenting, to say the least. But that's not an excuse. I mean, so a poor kid comes up and has a poor offensa, or middle-class kid, middle-class offensa. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
You're not doing your kids any good if you don't teach them right and wrong, and that actions have consequences.
And here, they're teaching them exactly. But let's even go past that. Let's say they hired the defense lawyer, and the defense lawyer got through, and the kid got a second break. Wouldn't that mom sit that kid down and say, kid, you got an amazing break here.
Exactly.
Do not screw it up.
Well, one would think, but that's what keeps us all in business, I guess. Well, we used up our time on this, but that's the hot story. Elise Wheel, Fox News legal analyst, author. Elise, always a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, and Happy New Year.
Very Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much. All right. So, the mom's going to be in trouble. The kid's in trouble. But the kid, even if he moves to adult status, is only going to get, 120 days? But it never, I don't know all the facts of the case. You got to be careful about this, but you shouldn't have been on probation to begin with when you kill 4 people when you're driving drunk as a kid. And certainly not because you're wealthy, because that's your defense. Okay, when we come back, much more to come here on Metro News Talkline. We'll talk about new security measures at State Capitol. Going to be a little bit different getting in our beautiful capital in just a few days. Talkline on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. 10:30, let's get a news update. Check in with the Metro News Radio Network. Find out what's happening statewide this hour, all across the great state of West Virginia.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Shauna Johnson. A state senator who changed political parties a year ago, giving control of the state Senate to the Republicans, is resigning. Wyoming County Senator Daniel Hall plans to go to work as a lobbyist for the National Rifle Association. His resignation takes effect on Sunday. The question now is, which political party will submit names of possible replacements to Governor Earl Ray Tomblin? The party Hall was in when elected, the Democrat Party, or when he resigned, the Republican Party. At this point, there appears to be some conflict in state code about that. The governor, meanwhile, was looking back on the year 2015 in the Mountain State.
Tomlin said in a statement that 2015 has been filled with, quote, unique challenges and progress worth celebrating. Tomlin was most pleased with construction taking place on a Procter & Gamble manufacturing plant in Berkeley County. The past year saw Tomlin order a state budget cut to deal with some of the financial problems facing the Mountain State, in particular the downturn of the coal industry.
That's Matt McCarroll reporting. A new website to track Freedom of Information Act requests for governmental agencies in West Virginia is set to launch Friday. The state law requires that website be up and running by January 1st. The Ohio County Board of Education is opting not to renew the contract of Ohio County School Superintendent Diana Vargo. It was a 3-2 vote from the board Tuesday that will end Vargo's time as superintendent this June. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Someday we'll go to the edge of the galaxy, but for now, you can go to the ends of the earth in a Jeep brand SUV. Find your adventure in the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the most awarded SUV ever. Catch a show of shooting stars underneath the night sky in the Jeep Cherokee, the 2015 four-wheeler of the year. And go far, far away in the Jeep Renegade with up to 31 mpg highway. Hurry in for a great deal at the Jeep year-end blockbuster sales event. Deal ends January 4th. Star Wars The Force Awakens in theaters now, rated PG-13. Purchase and get 0% APR financing for 75 months or $3,500 total cash allowance on the 2015 Jeep Cherokee Limited 4x4. EPA estimate 1.4-liter engine with manual transmission. 0% APR financing for 75 months equals $1,333 per month per 1,000 financed for well-qualified buyers through Chrysler Capital regardless of down payment. Residency restrictions apply. Take retail delivery by 1/4/16. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.
A Kanawha County father is set to spend between 1 and 3 years in prison for leaving a loaded gun out within reach of his kids. In April of last year, the 5-year-old son of 25-year-old John Seymour of Charleston shot his 4-year-old sister in the arm. The girl has since recovered. Seymour was sentenced Tuesday after pleading guilty to a child neglect charge earlier this year. A Harrison County man is behind bars today, charged with abducting a 14-year-old boy and sexually assaulting him in Anmore this past weekend. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Shauna Johnson.
Take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine.
Talkline on Metro News. Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Coming up in 1 hour, talk to Alan Taylor, Metro News Sports, who is in Phoenix at the bowl game. And yes, Darryl Worley and a couple others did not make the grade, literally. How did that happen? How does that happen? Well, we'll talk to Alan Taylor about that. Starting early next year, January 2nd, in fact, the general public will no longer have the option to enter the state capitol from various entrances under new security measures that are going into effect. Joe Thornton joins us. Joe Thornton is the Cabinet Secretary of the State Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. Joe, good morning. Happy New Year. Glad you could come on with us. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Hoppy. Always glad to be here.
Joe, I'm bummed out. I love our state capitol. It is a beautiful building. I love the fact that people come and go, school kids in and out, people walk in and out. You get all walks of life. I love the openness. This bums me out. We got to have this additional security. Is it really? We'll get to the specifics of it, but why is this necessary?
Well, Hoppy, it's one of those situations where we know that by implementing these measures that everybody's not going to be happy with it. A lot of people weren't happy that we had such an open campus. But it's about the safety of visitors, and it's about the safety of the employees that work in this building. And, most state capitals around the nation have gone to this. We're not leading the pack by any stretch of the imagination, but folks have seen the changing times around the world, and while there are not any current specific threats to the Capitol, protecting the Capitol and the employees and visitors is very important to us.
Yeah, it's really tragic that it comes to this. So tell the public what to expect beginning January 8th if they want to go to the Capitol.
Well, nothing more than usual, except that you will be required to be screened if you're not a current employee or somebody with a Building 1 access card. Most of the other buildings on campus have been secured for many years. But there will be a screening checkpoint, and folks will be required to go through that checkpoint, and then they're allowed to move freely around the Capitol as they always have.
So that's going to be at the west entrances and the east entrances, correct? Those will be the public, the west entrance, which is the Culture Center side. Is that right?
Correct. The north end of each east and west wing building. So straight across from the Culture Center on the west wing, and straight off California Avenue, lower end, if you will, of the east wing.
Okay. So those will be the public access points, and that's where there'll be what, metal detectors and screeners and such?
Yes, sir. That's right. There'll be magnetometers. Basically, what you see in an airport. Anything that you're carrying in terms of a briefcase, a bag, a backpack, bulky item, purse, will be laid on a conveyor belt and run through an X-ray machine for a screener to process it, and then the individual itself will walk through a magnetometer. In certain situations, if the magnetometer is not the right process, certain pacemaker maybe, we have hand wands to be able to fulfill those duties as well.
Joe Thornton is with us, Cabinet Secretary of the State Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety on New Security at the Capitol. So does that mean it'll be kind of like the airport? There could be lines, and on cold days, cold blustery days, that you got to stand outside and wait to get in, or how are you going to manage that?
Well, certainly there will be some delays in getting in depending on the situation. Obviously, we know during the legislative session is a busier time than the rest of the year, but the screening process will take place at the end of the hall after you enter the east and west wing. So there'll be a substantial amount of room within the hallway to stand in line should there be inclement weather. There could be, we're making arrangements for special accommodations for large groups, such as when school kids come on their bus visits, especially during the session and during the end of the school year. We'll dispatch a correctional officer. I'm sorry, that's obviously something I'm always on my mind. We'll dispatch a Capitol security officer with a hand wand, and they will physically take care of doing that process, either on the bus if the weather it doesn't allow, or in a safe area out of the parking lot after drop-off.
So beginning January 8th, the public-only access points will be the east side and the west side, those entrances, 7:45 to 5:30 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Sunday and holidays noon to 5:30 p.m. Access points will be adjusted when necessary to accommodate state government meetings, as you alluded to there. So what about the north and the south, those grand entrances that face either the boulevard or the river there? Will they'll be shut down?
Well, obviously they will be employee or other individuals, as I mentioned earlier, with Building 1 access. They will be able to utilize those entrances, but any visitors or anybody who does not have what we call a work clearance, so to speak, for Building 1 access will have to use the public entrance access. So there still will be other entrances for employees and other individuals with access, but all visitors will have to enter through those two entry points.
Joe, what happens if, this is West Virginia, a lot of people have concealed carry, you could even have open carry. What happens if somebody, a member of the public, does not have regular access, comes to one of the public entrances and they're taking stuff out of their pockets and they take out a gun or a knife? What happens to that gun or knife?
Well, if they're not a certified law enforcement officer, they'll be required to return that prohibited item to a safe location, such as what current code already calls for, is stored in their vehicle, out of sight in a locked box. But it will not be allowed entry into the Capitol building, and there won't be a lost and found isn't the correct word, but
you're not going to store stuff.
There won't be a procedure to hold that item until the person returns. They'll have to make arrangements for it otherwise.
Joe Thornton is with us, Cabinet Secretary of the State Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. Again, I want to go back to the original point. I understand the need for security. I understand there's crazy people out there. It's unfortunate that you have to do this. How much safer then do you believe the Capitol will be? Or will it improve safety that much, or will it create the impression that it's harder to access if you want to do wrong, that kind of thing?
It has been a topic of debate since I've been in this department, Hoppy, and I don't think it's an impression of enhancing safety. I think we certainly are. Are there Are there ways to circumvent systems? People find ways all the time. It's our job to try to make sure that we put procedures and mechanisms in place and policies and procedures that protect folks and try to weed out folks that want to do harm. There'll be maybe a minor discomfort for some folks of having to wait a few extra minutes to get into the Capitol, but I hope they understand that their visit to the Capitol will be much more secure by putting these measures in place.
Do you think that, and obviously you have to be concerned about security, do you think that the Capitol has been kind of a throwback? I mean, it's West Virginia. Everybody knows everybody. We're a small state. I've always been amazed and frankly appreciate it. I mean, you can walk in there. Anybody can walk in. You can, if you came in the west entrance, you could walk in, you could turn right and go in the governor's office. I mean, it's the reception area, but you could walk in. The governor might be standing there. It is pretty remarkable. Or you could go up and go in any door of any office of anybody and walk in, which is pretty remarkable.
It is. And, in my job and in the job of public safety in general, that's always something that every time, you're around that, it kind of makes your heart stop and you're always on edge and looking around because, a lot of people don't hear about the frequent things that do occur on campus when we have individuals who have wandered in, incapacitated in some form or fashion, or, it's those small extra steps, if you will, and I realize some people will say this is a huge change, and I understand that. I realize that we aren't making everybody happy with this situation, but my job and the job of protective services is to make sure that the state is safe, that the visitors to this grand building are safe, that employees, it's always hard to look at an employee, especially the employees that work in this office, and say to them, I value the employee safety more over in buildings 5 and 6 because there's controlled entry than I do over here.
Yeah,
so,
I get that.
It's a small step, I say, to do just another measure of security for everybody's safety.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're going to have armed guards outside the press room in the basement. I mean, we certainly need that down there. So I hope you'll have armed guards constantly monitoring the press room. Would you do that?
We have what we think is a substantial amount of security personnel.
I'm just teasing, Joe. I'm just teasing about that.
Because I know you are, but I want, security is everybody's job.
Yeah.
The mere fact that we're putting this in place, there's still an awful lot of responsibility on other folks to make sure that it's successful as well, because there are going to be a lot of doors to the building, and allowing folks, if you scan yourself in and then you clear and you go and open another door for somebody to come in and you get caught, you're risking your access to the building long term. So, again, no measure is foolproof, and I think everybody understands that, but we still are required to try to make these steps to ensure that everybody's safe.
I know what's going to happen, too. I mean, there's going to be an adjustment period, and I position myself there right near one of the main doors in the Capitol Rotunda, and I can just see people coming up and banging on the door and trying to get in. I'm saying, well, I can't let you in. You got to go around the other side. So there will be an adjustment here, especially with the legislative session starting here in just a couple of weeks. So
there will be, and tailgating, as we refer to it, is a problem in some of the other buildings. And I know that some employees take it very seriously and don't allow folks to tailgate into the building with them who may not have their access card. But we're going to take it very serious.
And I think also there's a Q&A. We posted it on our story. It's probably at the state website as well, a Q&A if you have questions about the additional security at the Capitol.
Yes, sir.
All right. Joe Thornton, Cabinet Secretary, Military Affairs and Public Safety. Joe, thank you for coming on. Good luck with those security measures, and we'll see you at the Capitol. Thank you for your time. Happy New Year, sir.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you as well.
All right. Thank you very much. I get it. I do. It's just a shame because I always just loved the openness. Granted, there's a risk associated with that. And sometimes you see people walk around the Capitol and you wonder, how could... What are you doing? But you know what I'm talking about. All right, we'll take a break and come back. When we come back, so Dan Hall's leaving the Senate. Or is he? What's next?
'Tis the season to start saving. At MVB Bank, it's easy with our new 12-month CD. Start earning 1.15% annual percentage yield with a minimum deposit of just $1,000. To start your CD savings today, visit our jolly team at any MVB location or call us at 844-MVB-BANK. It's sure to keep you off the naughty list next year. MVB Bank, your financial life made easy. Member FDIC. a charity that's close to hearts and close to home. Burlington United Methodist Family Services has been changing lives by preventing harm and providing hope and healing to hurting West Virginia children and families for over 100 years. When you make a charitable contribution to Burlington, you're not only reducing your own tax burden, but helping provide crucial services across our state. Learn more about Burlington and see how you can help today at bumfs.org. Burlington United Methodist Family Services.
Let's bring them back. Let's keep them home. The visits are just too short, aren't they? There are measures West Virginia can take to help grow our economy, to provide opportunity in the Mountain State. Passing a right-to-work law is one of them. Let's do all we can to move the state forward. Are you tired of telling your family goodbye after the holidays? Well, let's bring them back. Let's keep them home. Urge your legislator to take action. Pass a workplace freedom bill this session. A message from the West Virginia Business and Industry Council.
This is Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. So State Senator Dan Hall, Republican from Wyoming County, announcing yesterday that he was going to resign to take a position with the National Rifle Association. Immediately, of course, the question was, okay, who do you appoint to replace him? And that's critical for a variety of reasons, including the fact the Republicans have a narrow 18-16 advantage in the Senate. Then Democrats raised the issue, wait a minute, Hall was elected as a Democrat, then immediately switched parties to Republicans. So what's the state code say? Do you appoint a Republican because he's in the Republican Party? Do you report a Democrat because he was elected as a Democrat? Now, maybe Hall is rethinking this resignation. The senator joins us on MetroNews Talkline. Senator, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Are you putting a hold on your resignation?
Good morning, Hoppy. Glad. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, if there's any doubt, I'm going to hang around until it's resolved. So I'm excited about the opportunity at the NRA, but I'm not interested in creating chaos in the Senate. So we're finally doing some good things. We have great leadership in the Senate, a great team moving things forward. I want to keep that moving whether I'm there or not. So yes, if there's any doubt, I'm going to stay where I'm at.
Do you think there is, and I know you've talked to counsel about that, we're going to hear both sides on that later in the show, but do you think there is doubt about whether your replacement should come from the Democratic side or the Republican side, in your opinion?
No, not in my opinion. It's been explained to me by counsel. Trust me, we researched this for quite some time before we made the announcement yesterday. And there has been no resignation. All there's been so far is a press release with intent. So we feel very confident that that first paragraph in the code is about the party affiliation, and then the subsequent paragraphs are about location or residency of the replacement.
Right. I'm gonna get deeper into that here in the next hour. So let me be clear about this. So I don't know what's going to happen next. There could be a legal challenge from the Democratic side, or they may wait till you actually would resign. I don't know. So is it fair to say you're just in a holding pattern until there's some official resolution, or how will you know when you can resign?
Well, at some point, I can't control what people do after I resign. But at some point, we believe we're going to have some sense of a solid answer. I would like to see the governor's office issue step up and say what they believe they're going to do. We believe it's very clear what they should do and what the law requires. And but like I said before, I'm not interested in creating chaos in the Senate. Lord, after years, we're finally have solid leadership doing good things, moving the state in a different direction. So I want to keep that going, whether I'm in the Senate or doing something else.
So would you be, and Senator Dan Hall is with us, Republican, Wyoming County, so would you be willing to stay in the Senate through the session if that would remain unresolved for the next 2 months?
Well, obviously I would want to talk to the NRA about that and my future employer, but yes. You would stay in. So, is that clear enough?
That is clear. So you would not do anything during this legislative session that would create a 17-16 or a 17-17 situation. That's what I'm hearing.
The state of West Virginia's future is far more important than my political career or professional changes. So although I am very excited about the potential of me moving in a different position, although I hate leaving the Senate, but I'm very excited about my changes coming up. If that's what we're talking about, I'm not going to throw West Virginia back down the toilet again when we're finally pulling ourselves out. I'm not going to do it.
What is your job? What are you going to do with the NRA, Daniel?
Well, the job title is state liaison for the NRA, which in essence, a lot of people just know it, generally speaking, as lobbyist, but it's far more than that. And I would have multiple states. And once my 1 year moratorium on West Virginia is over, I would have West Virginia.
Yeah. So you would be, if your resignation took effect at the first of the year and you work for the NRA, you would not be able to lobby the West Virginia legislature on behalf of the NRA for 1 year, correct?
It's our understanding. We do intend on asking for a waiver because I'll have other states. And if the Ethics Commission grants that, so be it. That'd be great. If not, then we fully expect to fill out the year.
Mm-hmm. So I tell you, I'm going to talk next hour. I'm going to talk with Richie Heath, who is, who's Republican counsel who's counsel for the Republican leadership, and he believes you're on solid footing to step down now, if you wish, and there would be a Republican replacement. However, Tony Magistro, who's I know is a Democrat, loyal Democrat, but also is familiar with election law, he's going to argue next hour that there's some question about it, and since you were elected as a Democrat, then switch parties, that in fact the replacement should be a Democrat. So that's what it comes down to.
Sure.
But all right, so we shall see. So you're going to stick around, you're going to ride this thing out till there's some resolution, right?
Well, I think there's going to be one sooner than later. I mean, my personal opinion, I think you'll see resolution in the next day or two.
Oh, really?
But that's my personal opinion. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, every attorney we've talked to that doesn't have a vested interest in legislation, as in some of your future guests next hour, have the same opinion.
So you would like some clarity then from the governor's office. You would like them to say they intend to appoint, a Republican replacement. You want some clarity from them?
I think that would make things easier for everyone. Yeah.
Okay. Senator Dan Hall, Republican, Wyoming County. Senator, thank you. We look forward to how this is going to be resolved, and I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Javi.
All right. Good to talk to you. Okay. So we have a bit of a kerfuffle here on that. Coming up next hour, as I said, Tony Magistro, who is he's a Democrat, and I know the Republicans are honked off at Magistro because they're going to say that Magistro is doing this because for political reasons. Magistro is going to say, I don't want to speak for him completely, but he'll be on next hour, I can say for it himself, that there are legitimate questions according to the code as to whether there should be a Democrat or Republican replaced. I have a copy of the code. I've read it. And I've had people from both sides try to explain it to me. it really isn't that complicated. So, but bear with me, because next hour we are going to read sections of the code. So I just want to warn you, sometimes we have to do that on Talkline. It can't all be just fun and laughter. Sometimes we have to read sections of the state code. That's coming up. Stay with us.
The following information could save your life.
We know it's wintertime. However, on milder days, don't be surprised to see motorcycles on our highways. So here's a reminder to motorists. Always be on the lookout for motorcyclists. And to riders, before you venture out, perform your T-Clock inspection. You know, tires, controls, lights, oil, and chassis. T-Clock. Let's all think safety first, driving or riding on West Virginia highways, no matter the weather.
This message from the West Virginia Governor's Highway Safety Program.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Let's go. Let's go. Hey. Where she at? Where she at? Where she at?
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Here in West Virginia, there are 2 great jackpot games you can play from the West Virginia Lottery. Powerball has drawings on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Mega Millions has drawings on Tuesdays and Fridays. The Powerball jackpot is $300 million. The Mega Millions jackpot is $130 million. Pick up a ticket at your favorite West Virginia lottery retailer. As always, please play responsibly. Coming up next hour, we're going to try to sort through the legal questions concerning the probable replacement to Dan Hall in the state Senate. And also coming up at the next hour, Kyle Wiggs. You know, he's on vacation, but guess where he's vacationing? Back in his home neck of the woods of St. Louis, and we know what's happening in St. Louis. Devastating flooding is taking place, particularly on the Missouri side, and Kyle Wiggs will join us in the next hour with an eyewitness report on that. Also coming up, WVU junior cornerback Daryl Worley, who's thinking about going to the NFL, has been ruled academically ineligible for the Cactus Bowl. Also, senior defensive end Eric Kinsey and 2 freshmen, Javon Durant and safety Kevin Williams, also left behind after failing to meet fall semester minimums. Out for the bowl. We'll talk with Alan Taylor, Metro News Sports. He has the story posted at WVMetroNews.com. He'll join us from Phoenix at 11:30. This is Talkline on Metro News. Metro News is the voice of West Virginia. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Talkline on Metro News in and around the great state. Hoppy Kercheval with you. Glad you're with us here. Talkline on Metro News. Okay, coming up later this hour, Kyle Wiggs reports live from St. Louis on the flooding there. Also at 11:33, Alan Taylor live from Phoenix. And the news is about the Mountaineer players who did not make the trip because they did not make the grade. Alan Taylor reports on that. But this hour, we got to dig down here on this issue with Daniel Hall's now pending resignation from the state Senate, because there is some question as to whether, if Hall, who was elected as a Democrat, quickly switched to the Republican Party, giving the Republicans an 18-16 advantage in the state Senate, that if Hall would resign, would the governor, it's his, what happens is the party committee, executive committee, comes up with 3 names. The governor picks one and would pick one from the party that the person is, exists in. So Republicans certainly feel that you got to appoint a Republican replacement. Democrats are saying, wait a minute, he was elected as a Democrat, and we read the code to say that since he was elected as a Democrat, that you'd have to appoint a Democrat. So later this hour, Richie Heath, who is counsel for the Republican leadership of the Senate, will join us with his take on it. Right now, Tony Magestro, Charleston attorney, and he works on election law and also a loyal Democrat, joins us on Metro News Talkline. Tony, good morning. How are you? Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on.
Happy New Year to you, Hoppy.
And I just want to be clear. I'm not picking on you, but you're not pursuing this for altruistic reasons. I mean, you're a loyal Democrat. The Senate's in balance, so you got an angle here, right? I mean, I'm not picking on you for that. I just want to be clear about that.
I do election law,
right,
and I have
right.
represented Republicans and Democrats in election law. Primarily Democrats, and you're right, I'm a loyal Democrat.
Okay.
But I think we're right in this case.
All right, well, okay. We're going to get down into the code here. And I just happened to be reading the West Virginia Code this morning. One of the relevant sections is 3-10-5, vacancies in the legislature. Any vacancy in the office of state senator or member of the House shall be filled by appointment by the governor from a list of 3 legally qualified persons submitted by the party executive committee of the party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated. Isn't that clear? And isn't that would be Republican under that?
Well, what the provision doesn't say, it was at the time at which you determine when the person is a member of which party. It doesn't say immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated at the time of the vacancy, nor does it say at the time he was elected. So we think there's an ambiguity there, and it's especially ambiguous when you look at subsection C of that same provision, which says that the list shall be submitted by the party executive committee of the state senatorial district in which the vacating senator resided at the time of his election or appointment. Mm-hmm. So, there's a conflict there. And what happens when I think you under the law, when you have such a conflict, is you look at what the purpose of the statute is. The purpose of the statute is not to replace the person with someone like the person is when they leave. It's to respect the will of the voters. The voters in that senatorial district elected a Democrat to that office. And ordinarily, when you have these kinds of the ordinary case, the person who resigns is the same party as the person that they were elected. So
ordinarily,
so to respect what the voters did in this case, elect a Democrat. The statute ought to be interpreted in that manner.
Well, you're a lawyer, I'm not. But I do want to go back, and I want to look at that. And that is Section A. I mean, that's the first thing. And the first thing is how the vacancy is filled. And it says, Tony, I don't see the ambiguity there when it says the committee of the party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated. Now, you're a lawyer. You're a lot smarter than I am. But if you read that section for what it says, the immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated, that would be the Republican Party.
Well, I still think that's ambiguous. But when you look at, there's no question he was a Republican he's a Republican now.
Right.
So if the statute is it immediately means in the statute that you look at the person's party at the time the vacancy occurs, then there's no question that he's a Republican.
Okay.
But if you look at subsection C of the same the same statutory section, it says at the time of his election or appointment. And the other thing, Hoppy, is as we discussed earlier, this is not the first time in the history of the world this issue has come up. And when it's come up other places, what the courts have said, and we're not talking about some liberal, expansive courts. We're talking about courts like Wyoming and Kansas. And what they've said is that provision is ambiguous. And we should do is interpret the provision in light of its purpose. And the purpose is to respect the will of the voters, not the will of the person who chose to change parties. I mean, Senator Hall had every right to switch parties. He and I get along. He's a good guy. I disagree with him on a lot of things, but he had the right to switch parties. But the consequences of that party switch meant that he was going to have to come before the voters and find out if that's what they really wanted in that next election. By his resignation, that's not going to happen. So now we need to look and see how do we best respect the will of the voters, because that's what we're talking about.
All right,
here.
Tony Magesters with his Charleston attorney. Let's go to two things you mentioned there. Let's go to, and again, as everybody's eyes glaze over, let's go to Section C, because I think the Republicans will argue that it's very clear, and you even concede that if you just take A, then the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated, that it would be Republican. Then you go to Section C.
What I said, Poppy, is that if that means that you look at that vacancy, he's a Republican. But I think what makes that provision ambiguous is it doesn't say the time at which he is definitely the person that was immediately preceding.
Right.
The question is, when do you look at the party? At the time of the election or at the time of the vacancy?
I think that to me,
I still think that's ambiguous.
That sounds like a stretch to me. But anyway, we disagree. Now, to Section C, B and C has to do then. The argument by the Republicans is, Tony, that okay, if you establish that the executive committee of the party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding a vacancy was affiliated, then it's okay, which district? What is the location? And the argument by the GOP is, in the case of the Senate, the list shall be submitted by the party executive committee of the state senatorial district which the vacating senator resided at the time of his or her election or appointment. The GOP is going to argue, and is arguing that, well, that's just saying, how do you determine where these people, where the executive committee comes from? And the executive committee is made up of those of that district at which time the person was elected. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I'm sure that's exactly what they're going to argue. But it says by the party executive committee, and the question then is which party, and that's why I think that where you get the conflict, and it says it doesn't. It really doesn't say that you look at the time of the vacancy. In fact, in C it says you look at the time of the election. And I think what's important to realize when you're looking at these provisions is rarely do people change parties. So if you're putting yourself in the mind of the legislator, it's obvious what they're doing is trying to protect the will of the voters. And so the idea that somebody might change parties, that's such a rarity that if you're going to interpret the statute one way or another, you ought to interpret the statute in the manner in which it applies 99.9% of the time, which also has the advantage of serving the public policy of the statute, and that is respecting the will of the voters.
Tony,
let me
go back to something else.
I want to make one point.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's take. I live in the East End. I live in a delegate district that, to my knowledge, has never elected a Republican. Wild Democratic margins in electing a member of the House of Delegates.
Okay.
If I chose to run for that office and won, and then the day after I got sworn in, switched to Republican, and then the next day I resigned, the governor would be, under the Republican's interpretation, the governor would be forced to appoint somebody who never could have gotten elected to that seat to serve the full term. And that can't be what that statute means. That statute's got to mean that we're going to look, because the voters don't get the full term of the person they elected. We're going to pick somebody most like the person they elected.
I'm still.
And that would be somebody from the same party.
I'm still hung up on this fantasy that you actually would switch to the Republican Party, but that's another story. So now you also said there's case law supporting your argument, and you cited, I think, Wyoming and one other place. But Tony, you know this. If you went into circuit court and you said, well, this is how they interpreted their state law in Kansas or their state law in Wyoming, they'd say, well, wait a minute, what's the West Virginia law say? So you couldn't. That wouldn't hold up, would it? By saying this is what Wyoming does.
Well, we think the statutes are similar enough. I looked at those cases this morning. We think the statutes are similar enough to those cases in the other jurisdictions that in resolving these ambiguities, and what the court said, the best thing about what the court said in those cases is these provisions are ambiguous, and in resolving these ambiguities, we're going to respect the will of the voters. And that's something that our Supreme Court has. That's a doctrine that applies throughout the country, and our Supreme Court's recognized that a number of times, that the election laws exist to respect the will of the voters.
Tony, one thing, you probably heard the interview with Daniel Hall. This all may become moot or somewhat moot in the short term if Hall just decides to ride it out so that the Republicans don't lose their advantage.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't resign, then there's not a vacancy. I think that's right. I think he's got to make a decision as to his personal decision as to whether or not he wants to accept this new job or not. And that's not something that any of us have any control over other than Senator Hall.
Tony Magistro, Charleston attorney. And Tony, there's nothing I enjoy more than sparring with you about Section 3-10-5 of the West Virginia legislature. It's just.
I was happy. I always appreciate a good legal argument for you. You prepare me well for the court.
All right, man. Good talking to you. Have a good New Year. We'll stay in touch.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi, and I've got a great West Virginia story I'd like you to watch. Doddridge County's Clara Santucci is in the final stages of training in her bid to earn a spot on the United States Olympic team in the marathon. Her story embodies West Virginia's culture of hard work, dedication, and grit. In association with the Prim law firm, Pikewood Creative has produced a documentary on Clara's Olympic dream. Watch the video by going to primlaw.com. That's PRIM law.com.
It's here, the year-end blockbuster sales event at your Central West Virginia Jeep Giant. Northside Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram trucks in Summersville. Inventory is huge, and so are the savings. Come on in now for this deal. A 2016 Jeep Cherokee Latitude 4x4 cold weather group. Yep, you're going to need it. Satellite radio. Retail price $29,230. Blockbuster price $24,999. You save over $4,200. It's only the beginning. See us in person or online at northsidewv.com.
This is Talkline on MetroNews. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline on MetroNews. I should have played this yesterday in honor of Lenny Kilmister of Motorhead, passed away at age 70. Well, we're going to do more on this thing about Daniel Hall later in the program. We get the Republican side on this. And if you listen to Talkline, I appreciate all of you who do know that sometimes we're going to get into code sections. I mean, I don't stay away from stuff just because it's complicated. Kyle Wiggs is on vacation this week, but is there really any rest for broadcasters? He went back home to St. Louis, which is being hit by devastating floodwaters, not only the Mississippi, but the rivers emptying into the Mississippi. Kyle Wiggs joins us from the greater St. Louis Metroplex. Kyle, good morning. How bad is it there?
Well, it's pretty bad. I mean, it hasn't been anything like this since the worst floods ever on record, which were back in 1993. So this is the worst flooding they've seen in this region since then, and that's over 20 years ago. And there are some areas, I mean, the Mississippi is going to miss that point. I mean, the Mississippi is way, way, way over flood stage, but it's not going to hit the point it reached in 1993. But there's some other smaller rivers, the Merrimack River, which is about 220 mile, just a very narrow river that runs from Dent County near Salem, and it empties into the Mississippi right at St. Louis. It is at historic proportions in terms of its flooding, and it's really caused some damage. That's the one that's got Interstate 44 completely closed down for about a 20-mile section just west of St. Louis, and there's a St. Louis suburb of Fenton, which is west of the city, where the water got into a sewage treatment plant, completely shut it down, and there's raw sewage flowing into the Merrimack River. So that's an area just a little bit west of the city. That's where the worst problems are, at least in this region right now.
Kyle Wiggs is with us from St. Louis. And Kyle, as you said, and what happens is that even if the flooding from the Mississippi is significant but not historic, those rivers that empty into it, like the Merrimack you talked about, there's another river, it's the Bourbeuse, B-O-U-R-B, which, ones that empty into the Mississippi, they get backed up, nowhere for it to go. They start to flood.
Right. That's why, St. Louis, this area, the flooding it gets bad because there's so many rivers. The Missouri empties here right north of St. Louis. The Illinois River converges with the Mississippi just north of St. Louis. The Kaskaskia comes in just south of St. Louis. So that's why, time and time again it happens here, plus everything that runs into the Mississippi from the states above it, Iowa and Wisconsin, and even as far north as Minnesota. That's why it was so bad in 1993. That they could see that coming because all of that water was, filling up the Mississippi, and then it comes down and swells here in St. Louis. This happened really fast. I mean, again, in 93, there was a period of 6 or 7 days where they knew the problems were coming. I mean, this was just caused. It started raining here, I guess, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and it rained all weekend. The rain has stopped. It hasn't rained. We came in on Monday. It hasn't rained since we've been here, but again, all of this water is flowing in through these various rivers and converging at this point and causing some major problems.
Kyle Wiggs with us from MetroNews, who's in St. Louis, home visiting family, and right in the middle of this flooding there in eastern Missouri. So what are the images that you've seen on television there, perhaps even some in person? What have you seen?
Yeah, we've been into the city twice, actually, coming from the airport on Monday, and then we went into St. Louis yesterday, and just, driving along the interstate, obviously the Mississippi runs north-south, and you cross the Mississippi, and you see how swelled it is, and right downtown, there's an area where there's a huge flood wall that's been there for decades, and it protects the city, protects downtown from being flooded. But you can see the water up against the flood wall, and it goes up the arch grounds. Anybody who's been here knows that the arch is elevated. There's a series of steps that go up several feet, and the river actually laps up against the steps of the arch grounds, and that, you could see that when you cross. But even going east-west on the interstate, you see water in places where there just normally isn't water. So, I mean, that's what you can see in our area, but the television image, the television image is west where the Merrimack is flooded. Highway 44, again, Interstate 44 is completely submerged. The water's all the way up, to the bottom of the road signs. So there's several feet, 3, 4, 5 feet of water covering Interstate 44 for about for a long stretch. It's shut down for 20 miles to the west of here. So those images are quite striking, and there's some areas there where there's water up over gas pumps at convenience stores, and it's some pretty devastating damage.
Kyle, and it's different than here. We get the small creek flash flooding for the most part, and it rises up quickly, goes down quickly, and because of our terrain, comes up, and then the hillside stops it at some point. But they're so flat, it just, once it starts to flood, man, it just spreads out. It lasts, and you're exactly right. I mean, they're saying Interstate 44 is not going to be open until Friday. Wow. Wednesday. I mean, that's it started causing major problems late last night, and that part of the interstate was closed around midnight, and they say it won't be open again until Friday. And there's some other smaller roadways, highways that link with 44 that are going to be, they say, are going to be closed through the weekend. So that's the suburban part of the city to the west, and it's caused some major problems, as you can imagine, with commutes coming into work today. Not to mention the loss of property and the damage that's been done to people's homes and business. So people are still working. They're not telling people. Is there a state of emergency? Are they telling people to stay home, or what's going on? Well, the state of emergency has been declared in Missouri and in Illinois. I mean, there was some flooding that actually closed Interstate 70 to the east of here in Illinois on Monday when we were coming in. So there's been a state of emergency declared in each state. The National Guard is out, and they're filling the sandbags and stacking up the sandbags in the areas, in the lower areas down near the rivers where where you can provide some protection. So all of that's going on. They haven't discouraged people from going to work. I mean, I-44 is a mess. They've got all kinds of people that are trying to get in towards the city to get to work. There's contingency plans. That's what you're hearing on the news and on the radio and television mostly, is how to avoid that. If you have to get in from Fenton, or if you have to get in from Arnold to go to work in St. Louis, people are having to go around that. So that's kind of the big story now. All right. Kyle Wiggs, Metro News in St. Louis, happens to be there for a family gathering, but we put him to work covering some of the flooding that's going on there. Kyle, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. We'll be in touch. All right. Have a good day. All right, man. Kyle Wiggs is there, right in the middle of it. We'll take a break and come back. When we come back, some bad news for the Mountaineers as they arrive in Phoenix for the bowl game, because they arrive without several players, including one or two very key players. What happened and why? Alan Taylor's next. This is Talkline on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. 11:30, let's get a news update. Check in with the Metro News Radio Network. Find out what's happening statewide this hour, all across the great state of West Virginia.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Shauna Johnson. Visitors to West Virginia State Capitol will see security changes in the new year. Beginning on January 8th, a week from Friday, visitors will enter through a security checkpoint at the Capitol entrance near the Culture Center. During the legislative session, a second checkpoint will be open on the building's other side. The regular legislative session begins 2 weeks from today at the State Capitol. Charleston police now say a Sunday murder was about drugs.
23-year-old Tremaine Jackson says he shot 29-year-old Brian Rogers Sunday on the city's west side because Rogers had stolen $3,000 worth of heroin from him earlier this year. Chief of Detectives Lieutenant Steve Cooper says this type of violence is not unusual for those involved in illegal drugs.
Heroin dealers are not good people, and they do tend to carry firearms, and the drug world is a dangerous place to live in.
Cooper says detectives obtained a full confession from Jackson. Rogers of Ripley was shot once in the stomach. He collapsed in a deli after asking the owner there to call 911. I'm Jeff Jenkins, WVMetroNews.com.
The search for a shooter continues today in Lincoln County. Emergency officials say a man was wounded off Route 34 near Coon Creek Road on Tuesday night. In Raleigh County, attempted murder charges are among those filed against the man who allegedly attacked his ex-wife outside of the MacArthur Walmart Sunday and then went after the pastor who tried to intervene. You are listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Metro News Radio Networks, the voice of West Virginia, and the voice of successful businesses across the state. You might be interested to know that when you advertise on Metro News, your message is heard in all 55 counties on more than 60 radio stations, that our programming reaches more than 600,000 people each week, and that by associating with West Virginia Metro News, you're associating your business with some of the biggest names in the state, like Hoppy Kercheval, Tony Caridi, Chris Lawrence, Fred Persinger, and many more. But maybe you should just listen to what some of our advertisers have to say.
Metro News understands West Virginia, understands the businesses in West Virginia, understands the people.
And it's in every little nook and cranny and small town in West Virginia.
It's accomplishing what we set out to accomplish.
We're reaching a vast majority of West Virginians through the network.
They really do become a strategic partner.
It is the simplest and easiest way to reach the largest percentage of West Virginians.
Visit WVMetroNews.com to find out how to get your business on the most efficient and effective advertising entity in the state. Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
West Virginia University junior cornerback Daryl Worley is not in Phoenix, where the Mountaineers are preparing for Saturday's Cactus Bowl against Arizona State. He's one of 4 players to be ruled academically ineligible. Tip-off comes next hour in Blacksburg, Virginia, for West Virginia University's number 19 ranked Mountaineer men's basketball team and Virginia Tech's Hokies. It is a sold-out game there. And the last Powerball jackpot of the year is at $300 million. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Shauna Johnson.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank. Your most valuable bank member, FDIC. Story posted last night at WVMetroNews.com. Daryl Worley among 4 Mountaineers sidelined by academics for Cactus Bowl by Alan Taylor. From Phoenix, West Virginia junior cornerback Daryl Worley, in the midst of considering early entry into the NFL draft, was ruled academically ineligible for the Cactus Bowl, did not make the trip. Senior defensive end Eric Kinsey, 2 freshmen, receiver Javon Durant, and safety Kevin Williams also left behind after failing to meet fall semester minimums. Alan Taylor, Metro News Sports in Phoenix. AT, here's my question. You've got to be kidding me.
6 hours, man. You got to get 6 hours done, and not only do you have to pass the 6 hours, you have to have it done by a certain time. And with Worley, reading between the lines on what Holgerson was saying, as of today, he probably has passing grades and sufficient grades for those 6 hours, which, as you know, every athlete really should. But something wasn't certified, whether it was a paper handed in late or a test not completed on time or something. Not that makes it any more palatable, given all the the academic sort of advantages that some of these athletes have that mitigate the time that they spend playing football. But something wasn't completed on time, and Dana thinks Worley can easily rectify that and be back next year. You just wonder if that's a sign of a kid sort of checking out and thinking now that that's the impetus to go to the NFL.
You said 6 hours, so there were 2 classes, or he had 6 hours this semester, or what? Do you know? Yeah, well, 6 hours in a semester is the NCAA basic eligibility for a bowl game and for being eligible for next semester. It sounded like with Daryl that it truly was a surprise deal at the end because they trotted him out for interviews last Tuesday, and he sat out there for 45 minutes or an hour, had lengthy interviews with myself and other people. No way, if he's on the edge academically at that point, at least in the coach's eyes, is he out there. And he was really talking about Arizona State and being focused on this game and not making an NFL decision until after this game. I think had either party really thought he was in trouble on that day, which ironically is only like a day before they find out whether you're certified or not for the bowl game. But if either side thought that he was a risk at that point, I don't think we would have been talking to him. Alan Taylor's with us, Metro News Sports in Phoenix. This is what Holgerson said, according to your story. Daryl's a good kid, but he did a little too late, said Dana Holgerson. It's more of a timing issue. Daryl's a good student, and Daryl's eligible, but because his classwork was late getting in, he failed to meet the NCAA bowl certification timeline. Quote, and ongoing quote, the academic deal is, obviously for a whole bunch of reasons, out of everybody's control. You know, it really isn't. No, I'm serious. I'm not picking on the kid. I understand. I mean, I've screwed up, but that is not true. The academic deal is obviously a whole bunch of reasons out of everybody's control. It is not out of everybody's control. It's in the students' control. Obviously, there were professors who were holding to certain academic standards. There is, as you said, the players receive, if they wish, I don't know what the qualification, one-on-one tutoring at the academic center. Okay, I should calm down.
Well, and I will stick up for Dana on
Okay,
that.
all right.
The way I took that statement, the nuances behind it, when he said obviously for certain reasons, I'm not saying he was saying North Carolina,
Okay,
but he was saying that in the old days, a coach could have just, made a call to a professor and suddenly Daryl's playing in the bowl game. I don't think he was saying that, oh, woe is us, we don't have input anymore. I think he's cool with the fact that it's on the kids and it's between them on the academic side. So that's just one of those issues where you read something and if you don't hear him say it, that's the issue.
All right. I back off from that then. Because like you say, in the old days, somebody would have called somebody and said, hey, try to make it. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
All right, I'll back off of that. So what is
but
it?
You're right. I mean, it's all about personal responsibility. And 6 hours, there's a lot of kids out there taking 12, 18, 20 hours a semester and getting it done and working. Six is almost farcical, even though they do spend a lot of time during the football season.
They spend a lot of time.
Football things, yeah.
A lot of time on football things. So is that probably it for Worley? I mean, they talk about it. I mean, he'll probably enter the draft then, don't you think?
Well, the thing, according to Dana, and we don't get to see this draft advisory board feedback from the NFL, but basically, if a kid's a first or second rounder, a lot of schools say, hey, go. You're not going to get much better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Holgerson said they got the feedback on Worley, and it showed he should stay in school.
Okay.
That sounds like the same thing that Carl Joseph heard last year, which is, I'm just guessing, maybe your third round at best, maybe your fifth or sixth round at worst, you should go back to school.
Right.
So Dana, intimates that Worley would not only be welcome back, but that he'd be a team captain and that he should be, eligible for spring semester. It's not like he's got a ton of work to make up to get eligible again. It's not like he's got a 2 or 3 semester hole to climb out of. So that should play into it.
All right. So the loss of Worley is obviously huge. What about defensive end Eric Kinsey and then Javon Durant, the freshman receiver, and freshman safety Kevin Williams? What's the significance of the loss of them?
Well, Williams is a redshirt kid who turned some heads back during fall camp, but didn't play this year. So that's as far as this game, nothing.
As
far as the future goes, that's a different issue. On the defensive line, where Kinsey is gone, he is a senior. Maybe Larry Jefferson, the junior college recruit, gets some more playing time. He played a few games early, but has really just not looked ready the second half of the season. Then there's also John Lewis, the sophomore from University High there in Morgantown, who has sort of been the number 3 defensive end. That's the spot behind Christian Brown. So, if Arizona goes tempo and there's 80 defensive snaps, you don't want Christian Brown playing 80, 85 snaps. So that's how that will be impacted. On Javon Durant, depending on the week, he was either a really great receiver or a guy who's just dropping passes. So look for Karan White to step in there and play more. Look for Gary Jennings to play more, David Sills. It's not good for that kid. It's not a good omen for him as far as being academically ineligible after one semester in college. But for the purposes of this game, they've got other guys they can put in there.
Okay. Finally, I want to go back to Worley, so I want to be clear about something. So can you be eligible with just 6 hours? I mean, you're not even a full-time student, right? How does that work? Do you know?
I think in season that's sort of the trade-off they make. I've looked at it on two different sort of NCAA criteria things, which we'd have to take the lawyers at Greer to go through to understand. But that's the number Dana dropped last night. That's the number you hear referenced from coaches all the time. But now to be eligible next season, they have to have another 18 hours combined between spring and summer. So it's not like you can just do 6 throughout your school years and be making progress towards graduation.
I understand. All right. Any other news this morning?
Not yet.
It's early. It's too early.
The cacti here are very prickly, Javi.
Should I take that as a metaphor, or do you mean literally? What are you?
I think both.
Okay. All right.
I think when you feel the reality of one, it quickly becomes a metaphor. How did I wind up here? What am I doing with my life?
I'm about to go into a Talking Head song. You are not my
So we're
beautiful
sick to
wife.
have
Yeah. All right, Alan Taylor, Metro News Sports. Read him at WVMetroNews.com about the loss of those players for the bowl game for academic reasons. AT will follow you at the bowl. We'll talk to you each day. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thanks, Hoppy. Talk to you soon.
All right. All right. There it is. We'll be back. Stay with us.
We're in the spirit of giving at MVB Bank this year, and our gift to you includes awesome CD products at great rates, like our 58-month 2.12 annual percentage yield CD. You can start saving today with a minimum deposit of just $1,000. Hurry in now and avoid the holiday rush. This is a present that keeps on earning year after year. MVB Bank, your financial life made easy. Member FDIC. Visit us at mvbbanking.com. You feel a strong desire to help hurting children and families in West Virginia, but you think,
what could I do?
Burlington United Methodist Family Services has a place for everyone. Folks to help with office duties in their facilities across the state. Professional and business people to help teach youth about their professions. Volunteers for their annual pumpkin and apple harvest festivals. And of course, donations of all kinds. What can you do? Search your heart and go to bumfs.org today. bumfs.org.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Talkline on Metro News. Smokies on the Gorge is hosting their annual New Year's Eve dinner and party. Celebrate the new year with live music by the Mike Snodgrass Band and the famous Smokies on the Gorge Buffet. Don't miss out on this lively night on the edge of the gorge. Call 800-225-5982. 800-225-5982. Or visit go2wv.com for more ideas on how to ring in the new year in West Virginia. Let's get another perspective on this Dan Hall story. The Republican senator from Wyoming County, elected as a Democrat in 2014, immediately switched to the Republican Party, giving the GOP an 18-16 advantage in the Senate. Hall announced yesterday that he planned to resign. He's taken a position with the National Rifle Association. Some Democrats are contending, well, since he was elected as a Democrat, that the appointment should be a Democrat. Republicans are saying, you got that all wrong. You're not reading the code correctly. Richie Heath is counsel for the Republican leadership on the Senate. He joins us on Metro News Talk on. Richie, good morning. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Hoppy. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So you heard, I'm sure, Tony Magistro earlier in his program, and he said that Section A, 3-10-5, where it says that filled by appointment by the governor from a list of 3 legally qualified persons submitted by the party executive committee of the party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated. He says that's ambiguous. And you say what?
I just don't think that's a reasonable argument. When you're talking about reading the state code, Hoppy, you have to be looking at this in terms of a reasonable interpretation. Anybody can come up with an alternative interpretation, but when you're talking about these issues, you have to be looking at a reasonable interpretation, and also you need to be reading these code sections together. This is one whole section that deals with the issue of vacancies in the legislature, subsections A, B, and C. And you have to read those together to give the full meaning of the section. And when you do that, I think that this is pretty clear. It's a non-issue, and while it makes for good fodder, I think ultimately legally is a moot point.
All right, let's go to the rest of the section, because Magistro goes to Section C. In the case of a state senator, the list shall be submitted by the party executive committee of the state senatorial district in which the vacating senator resided at the time of his or her election or appointment. Magistro argued, well, look at that, resided at the time of his or her election or appointment. Wouldn't that be 2014 when he was elected as a Democrat?
If they were talking about the party selection, but that section overall, you read the sentence before that, is actually talking about where the person resides, in which the vacating senator resided at the time of his or her election or appointment. And the purpose of that section is basically if you have a situation where a senator, or there's the exact same language for a delegate in B, resigns, and say the reason for their resigning is that they now live in another part of the state, they are no longer legally qualified for that district. That subsection basically clarifies that you go to where they were elected from at the time of their election or appointment to determine which senatorial district would be appointing the vacancy. It doesn't refer in any way to which party. To get the party, you have to look at subsection A. And it clearly says in 2 instances, and Mr. Magistro didn't mention the second instance, first, the party with which the person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy was affiliated. That is now. Daniel Hall is a Republican now. Now is the time immediately preceding a potential vacancy. But then if you go to the end of that, it says, with respect to the governor's duties, if the party executive committee doesn't submit a list to the governor shall appoint within 5 days thereafter a legally qualified person of the same political party as the person vacating the office. There are no qualifiers on that language. There are no references to the party of that person when they were elected, when they were appointed. Statutory construction is a very specific thing. Every word, every sentence has to be given meaning in the statute.
Well, that is pretty clear. That does seem pretty clear.
You cannot ignore that. And if the legislature, as Mr. Magistro suggests, had intended to say at the time of the election or appointment, they could have used that language there because they used it in subsection C, but they did not. And so because they didn't use that, you cannot read that language into the main subsection of that section.
Richie Heath is with us, who is general counsel for the Republican leadership on the state senate. I love, like I said earlier, I love when we talk subsections of state code. It's a highlight of my Christmas holiday. But Magistro says, going to the subsections, he suggests that there is ambiguity, which you believe there isn't. He suggests there's ambiguity. And he says that if there is ambiguity, you should look at the intent. And wouldn't the intent be to replace Hall with a person of the same party of the people who elected him? And the people elected a Democrat. So shouldn't you default to a Democrat because that's who the people elected, a Democrat? That's his argument.
No, and I understand that argument. I'd say Senator Hall has already said that he has his party switch represents the will of the voters in his district. When he turned Republican, he noted that district has changed drastically from the day when he was elected. And we saw that in the 2014 election. You had a Democrat incumbent in that district in 2014 who got beat resoundingly by Senator Mullins. And Senator Hall, in his change of party, noted that the district he represents, the will of the voters in that district, has changed substantially. And as such, that's why he switched parties, to better represent the will of his voters.
Well, I would argue that, and now I'll defer to him that was his decision. I would also say it came 36 hours after the election, and it gave the Republicans a 18-16 majority and put them on the leadership side. But nevertheless, now,
and to further on that point, Hoppy, this vacancy also is not a permanent replacement, and so this is for temporarily filling a vacancy. There will be an election this year on this, so the will of the voters will be. This is a mechanism for filling temporary replacements, and it clearly sets forth how you do that. You look at the party of the person.
Let me go. Richie Heath is with us, and he's general counsel for the Republican leadership of the state Senate on this Dan Hall issue. So let's go. I'll let the lawyers sort out the sections and subsections. But so let's look at this practically. Hall was just on this show, Senator Hall, within the last hour, and said, well, I'll stay on until it's resolved. So does that make all of this a moot point, and where do we go from here?
Yes. There is no vacancy to fill if there is the statute does not come into play unless there is a vacancy. All the language that we are talking about here doesn't start. There's time periods for which things need to take place, et cetera. None of that is triggered unless there is an actual vacancy. So if Senator Hall Senator Hall to this point has not resigned, if he does not resign, it's a moot point. We're arguing semantics here.
But so he would stay. He wants to stay, and he said in the interview he'd like a resolve pretty quickly. He wants to start his new position with the National Rifle Association. So at some point, unless he would fill out the term, at some point it still needs to be resolved, right? I mean, will there have to be some legal divining here by somebody at some point, or do you need guidance from the governor, or where does it go? Because eventually it will be an issue if it's not an issue today, tomorrow, or next week.
Not necessarily. I mean, because look, if Senator Hall has taken a job offer here, if he and his employer work out a situation where he's able to stay on and perform the duties of his job, then nothing has to happen. The situation we're talking about in terms of legal clarification is if we have a vacancy in this situation. And that is where, yes, at some point you would have to have some sort of determination. The governor's office obviously would have to look at it from their standpoint, because any list of potential candidates would be submitted to the governor's office, and then the governor would pick the replacement from that list. So there's an analysis from the governor's office. If there was a legal challenge to any such appointment, you would have clarification potentially there. But until there is a vacancy, this is discussion.
Gotcha. All right, Richie Heath, General Counsel for the Republican leadership in the state Senate. Richie, thank you. Appreciate your insights, and Happy New Year. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Hoppy. Happy New Year.
All right, man. How many eyes are glazed over? I'm into it, because that's the kind of stuff I like. We'll be back.
West Virginia has balanced its budget on the back of the coal industry ever since we became a state 150 years ago. Historically, the coal industry and coal-fired electric utilities have accounted for over 60% of all business taxes, while high-energy wages contribute a disproportionate share of income taxes, and coal severance dollars sustain important programs in all counties. All told, the industry infuses over $26 billion to our state's economy. Coal alone has paid down nearly $1 billion of the state's workers' compensation debt. Consequently, all state businesses have experienced major reductions in workers' comp benefits. The coal industry has always supported our people and our economy, but it's under attack from the Obama administration and the EPA. It's fighting to survive. Coal taxes in West Virginia are higher than our surrounding states. We're losing coal markets to our neighbors. Let's get our mines and coal miners working again. Support a reduced tax rate for mining, paid for by West Virginia Coal Association.
This is Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Almost there. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Here in West Virginia, there are 2 great jackpot games you can play in the West Virginia Lottery. Powerball has drawings on Wednesdays and Saturdays, Mega Millions on Tuesdays and Fridays. Powerball jackpot is $300 million. Mega Millions jackpot is $130 million. Please play responsibly. I got to say, and I'm not a lawyer, reading Section A seems pretty clear to me. I don't see ambiguity in Section A, where it says person holding the office immediately preceding the vacancy, where it says the governor shall appoint within 5 days thereafter a legally qualified person of the same political party as the person vacating the office. I understand where you could, try to churn up some ambiguity in B and C, but I don't see any ambiguity in A. Wow, going to leave you with that, right? Okay, we'll regroup tomorrow morning at 10:06. Keep up with the news of the day, including sports and reports from Phoenix at WVMetroNews.com. For the crew, I'm Hoppy Kercheval. This is Talkline on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.